What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Today we're playing a massive game in South Florida at Hard Rock Casino, buying in for $5,000 at the 1025 game. There's going to be some straddles, some huge pots. Get ready for some big action. First hand we play here, we have the birds, the angels, pocket aces. I make it $75 in the cutoff. I get one call from the button. We go heads up, out of position to a jack high board. The player on the button is a European player who I do have a lot of hours with. He's very aggressive pre-flop, post-flop. We'll throw in some bluffs here and there. So I start out with a bet of $100. This board could get a little dicey, so I may have to go into check call mode depending on the run out. He makes the call. We see this 7 on the turn. This is one of those cards that's going to be better for his hands that he's calling with than my hands that I'm raising with. So I decide to check over to him. He doesn't think for too long and decides to check back, so I'm pretty sure he has a one pair showdown value hand. The river's a queen, interesting card. It brings in king 9 and ace king for a straight. Now he can never have ace king because he just called pre-flop, so I feel okay betting here knowing that he'll most likely never raise me on the river. I put out a bet of $300 and it gets the job done. He makes a quick fold. We take down our first pot here, playing 1025 at the Hard Rock. I've said this before in some previous vlogs that some people may think that I'm trying to coach people with my videos, and that is not the point at all. I'm trying to entertain people as well as showcase what it's like to play poker for a living, the ups and downs, what's going through my head during each hand. Now, of course, I make tons of bad decisions and I make a ton of weird and odd plays. However, I'm still learning. I'm still pretty new to poker, and maybe watching my mistakes can help you guys not make the same mistakes. Alright, back to the action here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record what I actually had, so you guys are just going to have to trust me. I had ace of diamonds, king of clubs in this hand. There's an under the gun raise to $75. I 3-bet next to act to $225. Action is back over onto under the gun player, who is a pretty aggressive, another European pro. Seems like there's a lot of them down here at this time of year. He re-raises me again to $675. Interesting spot right off the bat here, facing a 4-bet with ace king. He started the hand with $4,500, which is a little less than 200 big blinds, which isn't that bad to get all in pre-flop. However, he raised under the gun. I re-raised him next to act, so I should have a very strong hand here, and then he re-raised me. He also knows that I'm a tighter player. I'm playing up in a game, so I don't think he's doing this with a lot of trash hands. Maybe he's doing this with a bluff like ace 5 suited, maybe ace jack offsuit, but I actually kind of doubt it. I think he's going to have a lot of queens, kings, aces, and ace king here. So if I go all in and he calls, I'm really never in good shape. And if I go all in, I highly doubt he's ever going to call me with a worse hand. So I think our only option here is to make the call, which I do. So we're going heads up in position in a 4-bet pot. The flop is 997 rainbow. We completely miss. I'm not sure if you guys feel this way, but I feel like every single time I get ace king in a big pot, it always comes 975 and I always miss. And when I have pocket jacks, it always comes ace high. I just don't really understand it. Now, the under the gun player continues for a small bet, and I guess I could just fold right off the bat here. However, we could maybe still have the best hand if he has a worse ace high. Maybe he's got ace king as well and he'll check the turn. Or we have a couple clean outs. If we hit an ace or a king, we could beat him if he has jacks or queens. So I make the call for $400, praying for some help, or maybe he'll give up and check. We see a deuce on the turn, no help for us. He continues for over $1,000 bet, and now I'm just going to give up and I fold. After I fold, he puts his cards over to my camera and says, pick one. I want to just look at both, but unfortunately I can only look at one. I see the queen of spades, so I'm guessing he either had pocket queens or ace queen suited, so maybe we got bluffed, maybe we didn't. We now agreed to do one round of straddle, so we're playing 10, 25, 50, a massive game. I pick up queen 10 of diamonds in late position. I make it $125. I get a call from the button, so we're going heads up, out of position to an ace 10, 3 flop. 2 clubs, we flop second pair. I continue for $75 and the button makes the call. Turn 9 of hearts doesn't help us at all. However, I think I can still bet here and get called by flush draws, maybe worse 10x hands. So I continue for $300 and the button makes the call again. The river's a king, now bringing 2 overcards to our pair. I decide to slow down and check, hoping it goes check, check, and maybe I can win, but unfortunately, he decides not to check. He puts out a bet of $1,000. I don't think he's ever bluffing here on this river card. He most likely has 2 pair, maybe a set, or possibly a straight. I guess there is merit to thinking that maybe he has a missed flush draw that he's bluffing with, but I don't think he would use this king river card as a bluff, so I just let my third pair go. After losing those last two hands, I'm down a little over $1,000, so I add on for one yellow bird, and we move on to the next hand. Hopefully, we can start running good and making some hands and maybe get back to even. I have queen 10 offsuit in the cutoff. I make it $75. The small blind, same player from last hand, makes the call, heads up to a beautiful flop, 8, 9, jack, 2 hearts. We flop this stone cold nuts, the best hand you can get here. He checks over to me, and considering that he called in the small blind, I think he's going to have a ton of middling pocket pairs or middling suited connectors on this board. So I size up big, make it $150, and to my surprise, my opponent wants to play for more. He puts in a big check raise. He makes it $475. This is what dreams are made of. Playing in a big game, you raise pre-flop, you flop the nuts, and you get check raised. I have a little over $5,000 in my stack, and my opponent covers me, so we could be playing over a 10K pot here. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure he has some sets and 2 pairs on this board, maybe some big flush draw, combo draws, so I don't really want to call here and I'll allow him to see a cheaper turn card. If he has those hands, there's no way he's ever folding. I want to re-raise here so that I can shove basically any turn that doesn't pair the board or bring in a heart. I contemplate what my sizing is going to be for a while, and I settle on a 3-bet on the flop with the nuts to $1,275.
You're a funny guy. You're a funny guy.
Twice? Sure. 2 times.
Open up. Not sources, no. Flip them.
The small blind decides to go with his hand. He puts me all in. I make the snap call with a straight. He shows 6-7 of hearts for an open-ended straight and flush draw, but his straight outs are not live because I have the nut straight, so he can only hit a flush to win this pot. There's a massive amount of money in the middle. All we have to do is fade a heart to win over a $10,000 pot.
Oh, that's
Twice.
twice.
I have a straight.
He's got queen.
My straight held up on the first board, but unfortunately my opponent hits a flush on the second board. We were 63% favored to win this hand, and we are going to end up chopping this one up. Playing some massive pots here right off the bat, but don't you guys worry, there's still a ton of action. We're about to play another big pot here with king 10 of clubs. I make it $75 from middle position. Only the big blind makes the call. We flop trips on 10, 10 for rainbow. A great board for us. He checks. I bet small, $50. He decides to check raise me here to $275. Kind of an interesting spot. He's repping a 10 when he check raises on this flop. I don't think he would be check raising pocket 4s, but we really never know. We have a 10 in our hands, so it's less likely that he flop trips as well. So I think a lot of the time he's going to be bluffing here or doing this with a pair, like a 4 or a pocket pair, trying to protect his hand and see where he's at. I make the call, and we see the 6 of spades on the turn. Seems like a pretty safe card for us. And my opponent in the big blind continues to fire for $475. This bet is a little bit worrisome. I called on the flop, and now he's continuing for a pretty big sizing. If I had a hand like 10-7 suited or 8-10 suited, I would be a little bit more worried. But with king 10, I'm beating all of his 10x hands that he would call in the big blind with, like 10-7 suited all the way up to queen 10 suited. So I'm just going to continue with a call here. If he has us beat, hopefully we can lose the minimum. And if he checks the river, I'll bomb it and maybe get called by a worse 10. We see the deuce of spades, a great run up for us. No flush gets there. No other bigger cards like a 7, 8, 9, or 10, or jack to improve him to a full house. So when he continues for $1,500, I make the snap call, and he shows pocket 6s for a turned full house. And we get pretty massively coolered here to lose over a $5,000 pot. Looking back, maybe I could have hero folded the river just because I'm not sure if he'd be betting this sizing without a full house, but we have trip 10s with a king kicker on a super dry run out. I just think we got really unlucky and we lost another one. We end up adding on for $5,000, so now we're in the game for $11,000. It's not really going too well. We're down over $5,000 in the first 2 hours. Over the next hour or so, I don't pick up too many playable hands, and this one I have king, queen of clubs. There's a raise to $75. I make it $300 in the small blind. My opponent makes the call. We flop top pair and continue for a bet, and he makes the fold. This next hand, there's an under the gun open, a cutoff call. I 3-bet king, queen offsuit on the button. I get 2 callers. I flop top pair. I bet, and they fold. So just like that, we're only down $3,700 now, so we're making a little bit of a comeback. We decide to put the straddle back on, so now we're playing 10, 25, 50, a huge game, 5 times bigger than the normal stakes I play, and we pick up a big hand right away. Pocket jacks, I make it $150. I get a call from the cutoff, a call from the button, and a call from the straddler. You guys get to see what I look like before the hand. All right, the camera is set up again. We see the flop of 8, 5 deuce 4 ways, and when it checks to me, on this board, I decide to check out of position. I check on this flop with an overpair for a couple reasons, and I'm not going to give that away. I can't give away my entire strategy here on the vlog. It folds back over to me, and the cutoff player who put out this 375 bet is a non-professional player. He doesn't play for a living, but that doesn't mean he's easy to play against. He's very aggressive. He likes to play a lot of hands pre-flop, so I'm just going to check call here, allow him to overvalue bet a worse hand, or maybe bluff. We see the king of diamonds on the turn. Shouldn't really change anything unless he has a hand like king 8. I check and he very quickly checks back. The river pairs to 5 and brings in a backdoor flush. I think I can go for a thin value against this player with hands like an 8 or maybe pocket 9s or pocket 10s he'll call me with. So I bet $550. Looking over at his body language, you can kind of tell when your opponent looks like he's going to raise, and he looks like he's contemplating a fold or a call, which is good news for us. I think if he was raising, we would not be in good shape, but if he just calls here, we should be winning a lot of the time. He thinks for a while, and I am praying for him to put in some more chips. Hopefully I can get closer back to even, but unfortunately, he decides to show me an 8 and folds, so he makes a good fold here, but we do take down a medium-sized pot. Under the gun straddle still on. It's 10, 25, 50. I have ace king from early position, make it $125. Small blind 3-bets me to $500. Small blind's another European pro. They are flocking down here in South Florida. They're infesting all of the bigger level games, which really sucks. They're not easy to play against, and they're honestly sometimes unbearable to have at the table. This table was really annoying. All the Euro pros were just bickering with each other back and forth, and it got really annoying. Back to the hand, when he 3-bets me out of position here, I feel like he's going to have a pretty strong hand, so I can 4-bet sometimes and call sometimes, and this time I decided to make the call, and finally we connect with ace king. We see a board of king 3 deuce all hearts. Small blind checks over to me, and holding top pair, top kicker here, I feel like we're going to be way ahead or way behind. I think a lot of the time he's going to completely miss or have some under pairs of the board, so I don't think I can get 3 streets of value with my hand, so I check back. Turn pairs the board, and the small blind continues now for a very small bet of $275. I think a lot of the time here he's going to have those pocket pairs like 8s through pocket queens, so against that range, I don't think a raise is good. I want to allow him to bluff if he is bluffing. I'm just going to call here. My plan is to call basically any river that doesn't contain a heart. With over $1,500 in the middle now, we're going to the river, which is the queen of clubs. Not the best card. Pocket queens now beats us, and it's less likely for him to pay us off if he has those smaller pocket pairs, but he decides to check. So I feel very good about this hand once he checks to flop and checks the river. I'm going to go for some value. I make it $1,100, hoping he has a weaker king, or maybe he has a hand like queen jack suited or ace queen suited that he can call with. He goes into the tank for a while, over 90 seconds. I'm pretty sure he's not going to call here, which is what happens. He lets his hand go, but we do take down another pot now. We're only down about $2,000 on the session. We started off this session running bad, had to rebuy. We're in the game for $11,000. At one point, I was almost down $6K, so to win some pots now feels pretty good. I've tried to stay patient, try to pick good spots, and we're obviously hitting some hands now, getting some chips pushed in our direction, which is great. We have about $9,000 left in our stack, so it is possible, maybe, a miracle could happen and we could get back to even. You guys know a great way to try to get back to even? Playing pocket kings. There's a $50 straddle, a raise to $175. The button calls $175. I bump it up. I re-raise here to $800. The initial raiser has over $20,000 in his stack. I have $9,000, so we could potentially play an $18,000 pot here. Under the gun +1 eventually makes the call, and the button calls as well, over $2,400 in the middle. We haven't even seen a flop yet with pocket kings. We see a board of 10-9-9 rainbow. Seems like a pretty safe board for us. However, our 3-betting range really won't connect very hard with this board, and my opponents could smash this board with some full houses like pocket 10s, 10-9, or some trips. Out of the small blind, I'm really never going to have any 9x hands that I 3-bet with, and I'm going to call and 3-bet a mixed strategy with pocket 10s. So out of position here against 2 players, very deep stack, I decide to check. Under the gun +1 checks as well. Action back over on the button. He eventually decides to check. 3 of spades on the turn. Action back over on me. I contemplate checking again to maybe induce a bluff, but there is some hands I can get value from. Straight draws, flush draws, some pocket pairs that are unbelieving. I do want to play a balanced strategy, meaning I check some strong hands sometimes and I bet some strong hands sometimes. I check some weak hands sometimes and I bet some weak hands. I don't want it to be easy for my opponents to play against me. So on this turn card, I decided to start with a bet of $900. Under the gun +1 gets out of the way. Button ends up folding. So we take down a pretty sizable pot here with pocket kings. Over $10,000 in our stack now. At one point, we were stuck heaps, but we've slowly grinded our way back up. Only down $800 now on the session. After being stuck so much money and almost back to even, I'm about to call it quits on the night, but I get dealt in another hand here. Pocket 6s. I love these little pocket pairs. They're so easy to play. If you flop a set, you can win a decent pot sometimes, and if you miss, you can just fold. There's a raise to $125. I make the call. Cutoff makes the call. Small blind makes the call. Big blind calls. 5 ways to 8-7-6 rainbow. Flopping bottom set. Action checks over to me. I bet $200. Cutoff folds. Small blind puts in a raise. This is the same player who check raised us earlier on when we had king 10, and he turned a set of 6s. He decides to make it $675. Everybody else folds. It's now heads up. If you guys remember early on in the session, I flopped trips on 10-10-4, and this opponent check raised me with pocket 6s and turned a full house to win a pretty big pot against us. Now, this situation is different. We're very multi-way on a very connected board, so I don't think he's doing this with a 1-pair hand. If he does have a 1-pair, it's probably 8-9 for top pair open-ended. I think he's going to have a lot of 2 pairs on this board, maybe some sets. He can have all the straights like 9-10, 9-5, 4-5. So against that range, deep stacked, in position, I think our only option here is to call and evaluate on the turn, which is exactly what I do. The dealer collects the chips, almost $2,000 in the middle. We see the 3 of hearts on the turn. Small blind looks over at me, looks at my chips, looks down at his chips, and decides to check, which really surprised me. I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting a pretty big bet from him, so now we can discount him having a straight and a set. I don't think he's ever checking a set or a straight on the turn after he check raises. It's possible he could be doing this with a hand like 8-6, 8-7, 6-7 for pot control, but I'm pretty sure he would bet that hand as well. So now I think he has a 1-pair hand, or maybe just some total airball bluff. So there's no way I'm checking here and giving a free card. I settle on a bet of $1,150. The small blind thinks for about 10 seconds, not long at all, and decides to flick in the chips. So over $4,000 now in the middle. I'm not sure if I want the board to pair. If he has a hand like 8-7 and a 7 or an 8 comes, he will now beat us. So I think I'm just hoping for a break, which we do get. It's the queen of clubs. Shouldn't change anything at all. He decides to check over to me for a second time. With about $8,000 left in my stack, with about a $4,000 pot, I think for a while, I'm really trying to target those 2-pair hands like 8-6, 7-8, so I bet $3,000. This is a huge river bet for me. I don't think I've ever bet $3,000 on the river with money left to play for. To put this in perspective, I usually buy in for $2,500 every single day at 5-10, and about 2 years ago, I was buying in for $1,000 at 2-5. So now I'm betting 3 times the amount that I used to buy in for 2 years ago. And if we rewind 4 years ago, $3,000 was basically my entire poker bankroll. So it's pretty insane how big these stakes are. $3,000 bet into now a $7,000 pot. The action's back over on the small blind, and he looks like he's contemplating a call or a fold. If he goes all in, I will be sick to my stomach. Eventually, he decides to fold. So we end up taking this one down with pocket sixes. It ends up being our last hand of the night. After 7 hours of grinding, down almost $6,000 at one point, we have made a full recovery to profit on the session. I end up racking up my chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Alright guys, that is it for this one. A long, grinding ass session here at 1025. The table was tough. Some of the best players in the room were playing. I definitely felt outclassed in some spots, but I'm trying to push myself, trying to play bigger stakes. In order to get better, I gotta play against better players sometimes. Try to learn from them, try to learn from my mistakes, and try to push myself. So today, I pushed myself in a pretty big game, 1025 with $50 straddle. Stacks were super deep. It was much different than the 5-10-25 I usually play because everyone was super deep stack. I was like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 deep with some people, so the pots were getting huge. Started off the session running pretty bad. Lost with ace king and a 4-bet pot. I flopped the nuts versus a flush draw. Got it all in for over a $10,000 pot. Ended up chopping, so wish I could have won that one. Lost with king 10 versus pocket sixes when my opponent raised a flop. I called with trips and he just turned a 2-outer to make a full house. So at one point I was down over $5,000, but I was really trying to just keep my cool. Like I could feel the tilt coming up and I'm like trying to just calm down and play good poker. So took a little break, came back and just tried to grind it out. Try not to play stupid hands to try to get my money back. And luckily the cards started going in my way. Started winning some pots and taking some pots down, making some pairs, making some hands. And then finally that last big hand of the night, flopped a set of sixes, won a pretty decent pot. I was in the game for $11,000, cashed out for $12,031 for a profit of 1,031 bucks. So I will take it. I was down over $5,000 at one point in one of the toughest games in the room. I would say the toughest game in the room. So to come out with a profit of $1,000 over a 7-hour period, that is good with me. It is, what is it, Thursday night? Thursday night. So this video is coming out tomorrow. I'm gonna edit this really quick and bring it out to tomorrow for you guys, hopefully. And then we're back on the grind, making more videos, playing some more bigger stakes. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. Comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Until next time, I'll see ya.